Hey everybody, it's Rob. So I want to put forward a little bit of a theory why conservatives, the Republicans, are suddenly being swept away by conspiracy theories. Now, I by no means am going to argue that it's only conservatives that get into conspiracy theories. There are people that believe conspiracy theories all across the spectrum of politics. And if you look throughout the history of the United States, there are episodes that have occurred where actual conspiracies did happen. And so it's not completely unreasonable for people to look for like hidden truths and hidden explanations for why certain things are going on. But anyone who's watching who's actually a reasonable human being, I think, can agree that right now, American Republicans, conservatives, are completely going off the deep end in terms of their obsession with conspiracy theories. I mean, the fact that a batshit lunatic like Marjorie Taylor Greene is an elected member of Congress for the Republican Party kind of tells us something. And also Lauren Boebert, not quite as off the deep end as Taylor Greene, but she's a lunatic as well. And it's not just like, that fringe. Like, it's like a good portion of conservative Americans are, to some degree or another, obsessed and involved in this whole like QAnon and just batshit insane conspiracy theories. So anyway, my theory is basically that Donald Trump represents the death of the American conservative God. And what I mean by that, if you know anything about the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, he had this concept of the death of God, which was basically that, humanity and culture has killed the notion of God, and that this is a major upheaval in the way that people live their lives. The Christian God it ceased being a viable explanation for existence and for being and for reality, and that this was a major event that has caused great turmoil within the minds of human beings. Now, I think a similar thing is going on with American conservatives in that they formerly convinced themselves that they were the virtuous ones, that their belief in Christianity and a particular conservative American flavor of Christianity was the highest order virtue, and that this defined them as the supreme people of society, the people who are right about everything, the people whose path in life was the correct one, and whose beliefs were the correct ones. Now, Donald Trump came along, and clearly the guy is anything but a virtuous model Christian, model human being. And this has caused great cognitive dissonance with these people to the point where it has essentially destroyed the American conservative Christian God. God is dead. It no longer is a viable notion that they can ascribe to, that they can use to explain who they are and how they fit into the grand scheme of things and our society. And what we're seeing now, all this, just completely off the wall obsession with these wacky, bizarre conspiracy theories. And they're not only that these conspiracy theories are out there, but people are like dedicating their lives to believing this stuff. They can't even comprehend the fact that Donald Trump lost the election because he was a lunatic, he was an awful president, And people just got together and they said, no, we're going to vote this guy out. We want to change. We don't want to have to deal with this madman's tweets and horrible policies every single day. So we're going to vote against him, because let's be honest here, most people voted against Donald Trump and not necessarily for Joe Biden. So, I realize this is just a theory I'm putting out there. You're free to believe it or not. You're free to, challenge me here on this notion. But I really think there's something to be said for the fact that latching themselves onto Trump and everything that he represents, which is at odds with what they claimed to be all about, has created just like a major upheaval in the way that these people see themselves within society and within the world. So I'm going to grab my copy of The Gay Science, which is a great book by Friedrich Nietzsche, and just for the sake of doing so, I'm going to read section 125, probably the most well-known and often cited sections of the book, where he talks about the Madman. So I'm just going to read this section here, and you can decide if what I'm reading here at all might possibly pertain to American conservative Republicans. The Madman. Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, "I seek God, I seek God." As many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then, he provoked much laughter. "Has he got lost?" asked one. "Did he lose his way like a child?" asked another. "Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage, emigrated?" Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. "Whither is God?" he cried. "I will tell you. We have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained this earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continually, backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as though an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we not need to light lanterns in the morning? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the grave diggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine decomposition? Gods too decompose. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement? What sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? There has never been a greater deed, and whoever is born after us, for the sake of this deed, he will belong to a higher history than all history hitherto. Here the madman fell silent and looked again at his listeners, and they too were silent and stared at him in astonishment. At last he threw his lantern on the ground, and it broke into pieces and went out. "I have come too early," he said then. "My time is not yet. This tremendous event is still on its way, still wandering. It has not yet reached the ears of men. Lightning and thunder require time. The light of the stars requires time. Deeds, though done, still require time to be seen and heard. This deed is still more distant from them than the most distant stars, and yet they have done it themselves." It has been related further that on the same day the madman forced his way into several churches, and there struck up his Requiem Aeternam Deo. Led out and called to account, he is said always to have replied nothing but, "What, after all, are these churches now, if they are not the tombs and sepulchres of God?"